impact on residents, I think it's been overlooked at every stage. I think it's overlooked in the Hackett review at the start, overlooked in the regulatory response. Although there's good talk about resident engagement, it's sort of, on the one hand, we're going to engage with you and talk with you and bring you to the table, but on the other hand, we're going to bring in a building safety charge, which effectively I've described before as a blank check on behalf of leaseholders, and allied with a risk-based regime. And we all know that views on risk vary. There is no right answer, so therefore, in theory, if you take it to its logical conclusion, there's no end to what you could spend on reducing the risk level. And typically, the lower the risk, the more expensive the solution becomes. So residents, although the residents panel's being set up, but I think in terms of practicality of living through a remediation project, and I remember very clearly about 2.5 years ago, I interviewed a lady called Deepa Mistry, who was a shared ownership resident in the Old Kent Road, and they were one of the very first buildings to get remediation because they were ACM. And I remember her describing to me and breaking down in tears about how awful that process was, living on the 8th floor, having construction people wandering up and down outside the window looking through, young children being drawn to the works and almost trying to throw themselves off out the window, the noise, the dust, etc. And the reality is, these are really invasive projects. And so the question has got to be, is that work absolutely necessary? Back to that other point, is there a way through PAS, for example, to say we don't actually need to rip the walls off this building, we can do it. I couldn't imagine living in a masonry building and having all the external elevations dropped while I was living in it to then be rebuilt. That's just ridiculous. What the people you may save from a fire, you probably kill far more through mental health and other aspects because of having to live through that process, and bankrupting them potentially as well. So I think we do need to put residents at the centre of that. There's a really good thing that I tweeted out this morning that somebody had shared with me, which is about the sort of top 10 things for contractors to remember if they're remediating a building with people living in it, which is a really good graphic. But I think the best project would be the one that doesn't need to take place, I think, from a resident's perspective. Tell me my building's safe or it's reasonably safe and leave me alone. I want to live in my flat. I don't want builders outside my window. And there is a real knock-on from what the guys were saying around stalled projects, of these sort of, one of the government measures is commencement on site. So scaffolding up, start taking cladding off. A lot of projects then get stuck at that point for whether it's procurement delays or material delays or whatever it is, or arguing over money. So you're then living in a naked building wrapped in sheeting for who knows how long. And you've only got to look out the window here and start seeing some that have had scaffolding and sheeting around them for years. And you could argue that the safety level while that work is going on and while it's scaffolding, you've actually taken a big, what you've gained from taking ACM off, you've probably more than counteracted by the danger of having combustible materials on the scaffold, security risks around a scaffold, etc., and how well that's being managed when everybody's just cleared off an abandoned site for 6 months. So I think these things do need to be planned properly, and I'd like to see that they don't start unless you can finish them. And then you've got to look at what do we do in the interim period if we're delayed starting. But if it's just to tick a box to get the building safety fund money, that's not the perfect condition for starting a major project. And it will have massive implications on the people living in the building. And I think our housing association friends that are here, for example, will know how much you get it in the neck from residents at every moment, rightly and wrongly, if you're managing a remediation project.